Star Trek Strange New Worlds tried to ask one of the biggest questions in the history of the franchise. What is Starfleet? It did it with a documentary style episode that had all the ambition you could hope for. But did it work? I'm Will, and welcome back to another episode of Senior Nerd Presents Blur Trek. Today I'm going to answer the question of why, in my opinion, it did not completely work. And to understand why, we need to rewind the clock 25 years to an HBO miniseries that absolutely nails this format. It shows us exactly where Strange New Worlds went wrong. Now, Strange New Worlds has made a name for itself with bold experimental storytelling. We've seen musicals, high-stakes courtroom dramas, and even animated crossovers, all handled with a surprising amount of grace. So when the show decided to do a documentary-style episode in its third season called What is Starfleet, the ambition was totally clear, and honestly, pretty commendable. It was presented as a film made by Erica Ortega's brother, Beto, and it uses this format to ask a fundamental question about the Federation's most famous organization, Starfleet. And is Starfleet about peaceful exploration, or is it just a military wearing a friendlier uniform? This is a core question for the franchise, one that you could hear bouncing through series like Deep Space Nine and even films like The Wrath of Khan. But as the episode plays out, its killer premise starts to fall apart. The complicated question it brings us gets hit with overly simple answers, and the whole style feels tonally confused. To really get why this episode misses the mark, we need to follow the standard for this type of storytelling. And that standard is 1998's masterpiece From the Earth to the Moon on HBO. Produced by Tom Hanks, this series covered the Apollo program with incredible accuracy and real emotional punch. One episode called We Have Cleared the Tower uses the exact same trick as Strange New Worlds, a film crew documenting a vital mission. So today we're going to break down the specific choices that made one of these a master in focused storytelling and the other a flawed, if well-meaning experiment. We'll look at why From the Earth to the Moon's disciplined approach built a powerful story, while Strange New Worlds' shaky tone and shallow questions couldn't quite live up to its own hype. Now, before we get into the biggest problem while watching this video, if you like what you're hearing, do me a favor, boop the like button to send a friendly message over the open hailing frequency. And if you want more Star Trek analysis from me, respond by subscribing. Now, back to my thoughts. To me, the biggest problem with what is Starfleet has is its tonal whiplash. The episode just can't decide what it wants to be. Is it a serious, critical look at a complex institution, or is it a fun, behind-the-scenes peek at our favorite characters? It tries to do both, and because of that, it really doesn't succeed at either. The whole thing is framed by Beto, who we find out has a bone to pick with Starfleet. He thinks the organization is more of a military than it admits, and his documentary is meant to expose that. So the setup is fantastic. You have a biased narrator guiding us through a mission that pushes the Enterprise's crew ethics to the limit. They have to escort a sentient space dragon, or cow, or whatever they want to call it, that's been turned into a horrific weapon by a species at war. This is heavy, classic Star Trek stuff. But the serious tone is constantly being undercut by how the episode is shot and edited. The documentary format often feels more like a gimmick than a storytelling tool. We get weird, unflattering, low-angle shots from cameras supposedly hidden in chairs and other parts of the ship. and jarring cuts to interviews that feel completely disconnected from the crisis unfolding. One moment, we're thinking about the horror of a living being turned into a weapon of mass destruction. The next, we're watching Spock do Tai Chi or Ortega's tinkering with an engine in her room. Now, I will say that it does work when we get things like Uhura talking about her roommate's death or her family, or when Pike challenges Beto's questioning about watching someone die, or even when Dr. Mbenga is questioned and his past of essentially being the equivalent of a Starfleet Navy SEAL medic. But then the other moments in the episode, the slice of life moments, which are charming on their own, feel totally out of place next to the galaxy and the gravity of the main plot. The episode mixes the raw, shaky cam feel of a tense mission with the polished, sterile vibe of a DVD extra. This mix creates a confusion that drains the story of its power. The main plot is constantly interrupted by, and the high stakes of the space dragon situation are watered down by little scenes that feel like they belong in a different episode. And then what we're left with is a disjointed story about where the tough questions about Starfleet are lost in a sea of just random personal anecdotes, or Una's flat, I'm just following orders and not questioning them. Now, from there, let's turn and compare that to From the Earth to the Moon, particularly the third episode called We've Cleared the Tower. It also uses a documentary crew. They're covering on site the run-up to the Apollo 7 mission, the very first crewed Apollo mission after the fire that tragically killed 3 astronauts. The stakes could not be higher. The entire future of the Moon program is riding on this. Where Strange New World wobbles, From the Earth to the Moon is laser focused. Every scene, every interview, every bit of archival footage serves one goal: to show you the immense pressure, the painstaking prep work, and the human cost of shooting for the moon. This documentary format isn't a gimmick here. It's the engine driving the story. It stitches between the grainy, intimate shots of the film crew and then crisp cinematic scenes. A choice that perfectly captures both the public event and the private fears. The tone is rock solid, serious, journalistic, and deeply respectful. There are no quirky side stories, and when the astronauts do crack jokes, it's typically in gallows humor, their way of just coping with the unbelievable danger that they're in. When we see the engineers at work, their conversations are full of technical jargon, reminding us of just how complex and how precise this whole operation is. The show never lets you forget that this is a life or death mission. And unlike Beto's one-man crusade in Strange New World, the filmmakers here are presented as neutral observers, just trying to capture the truth of the moment. This is the story's natural, and letting the story's natural drama build on its own. The tension doesn't come from a filmmaker with an agenda. It comes from the reality of the situation. The memory of the Apollo 1 disaster hangs over everything. The episode's power comes from its discipline. It trusts us, the viewer, to get the stakes without needing to create drama or tonal shifts, and the result is a story that feels real, urgent, and deeply human. Now, the shallow depth of Strange New Worlds' inquiry, on top of its tonal problems, causes What is Starfleet to feel too shallow. It poses one of the biggest questions in the franchise, but then seems scared to actually answer it. And at a runtime of only 40 minutes, one of the shortest of the entire series, it really doesn't have the time to give its own theme the attention it deserves. The episode starts off by genuinely having a generally tough moral problem. The Enterprise is ordered to help a war-torn planet, but it turns out their plan for survival involving using a sentient being as a weapon. And on top of that, the creature The filmmaker Beto is right there confronting the crew about his belief that Starfleet isn't a force for peace, but for politics and conflict. And this is a setup for a challenging, brilliant hour of television, the kind of thing that made episodes like Deep Space Nine's In the Pale Moonlight legendary. But the episode here pulls the punches, and almost immediately the complex geopolitical conflict that created this mess is almost entirely glossed over. Instead, the story narrows its focus to the much easier question of whether it's okay to hurt a big, sympathetic space creature. The bigger question about Starfleet's role in galactic conflict gets shoved aside. And in the end, the documentary's whole premise is resolved way too easily. After one great scene where Beto confronts Uhura with his skepticism, this episode just sprints to the finish line with the crew saving the creature and also meeting his wishes to be able to end his own life. And in the final voiceover, Beto completely drops his critical stance. He concludes that Starfleet is really about its people and their good choices, a sentiment that the crew echoes in a final happy dinner scene. It's a nice, heartwarming, very touchy-feely ending, but it feels completely unearned. The episode raises a huge critique of the institution, only to wave it away with a platitude. It stops being an investigation and starts to feel like a recruitment ad that briefly considers a darker, more interesting idea. Now, From the Earth to the Moon finds the depth that Strange New Worlds is missing, and it does it by showing and not telling. The series never has a character look at the camera and ask, "So, what is NASA?" It doesn't have to. The entire 12-episode journey is an exploration of that very question, told through the actions, sacrifices, and successes of the people who lived it. We Have Cleared the Tower brilliantly explores the two sides of the space program without ever saying it out loud. On the one hand, it's a story of incredible human achievement. On the other hand, it directly is a direct result of the Cold War, a high-stakes political game against the Soviet Union. The show doesn't need a skeptical filmmaker to point this out. You can feel that tension in every frame. The documentary format is used to show the massive machine behind the mission, the thousands of people who are all working toward one goal. The storytelling is full of nuance. It celebrates the astronauts' heroism while also showing their very human flaws and anxieties. It highlights the incredible technology while constantly reminding us of the catastrophic failure of Apollo 1. The show gets that an organization isn't just one thing. It's a messy combination of ideas, politics, ambition, and human error. And where Strange New Worlds gives us a simple answer that Starfleet is its people, From the Earth to the Moon shows us that the answer is so much more complicated. It suggests that an organization like NASA can be a symbol of our greatest hopes and at the same time a tool of nationalism. It can be a place of genius and a place of tragic mistakes. The series earns its emotional power by refusing to give us easy answers. It shows us history in all its messy, contradictory glory and trusts us to sit with it. Now, that's the sign of deep, confident storytelling. So, in conclusion, Star Trek Strange New Worlds should get credit for being willing to take big swings like it always does. What if Starfleet is a bold concept? Using a documentary to hold up a mirror to the Federation is a brilliant idea in theory. But great ideas are all about the execution. So when you put it side by side with an episode like From the Earth to the Moon, We've Cleared This Tower, the episode's flaws become impossible to ignore. Its mixed tones and half-hearted investigation of its own question just undercuts its potential. It asks a galaxy-sized question, but only offers a pea-sized answer. The episode got so caught up in its own format that it lost the thread of the powerful story that it was trying to tell. From the Earth to the Moon, with a sharp focus and steady hand, showed us how to use the style, not as a distraction, but as a way to explore, to build realism and emotional depth. It showed and proved you can explore the complicated identity of a massive organization without losing your narrative footing. The ambition of What is Starfleet was admirable, but it just didn't live up to the standard set before. And it's a great lesson here in storytelling, that having a big idea question is easy. The hard part is having the courage to chase down into the messy, complicated, and often contradictory places of where the real answers are found. So, what did you think about What is Starfleet? Was it a bold success, or was it a noble failure? And what are some other examples of documentary-style fiction that really get it right? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments, and if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure you like and subscribe for more deep dives into Star Trek and also other shows that we cover here on our channel. We'll be covering Peacemaker this week, as well as K-pop, Demon Hunter. Thank you so much for watching. Live long and prosper.